So I actually have a secret to tell you.
Ooh, that's a good start. So you're doing it to do it. You're not doing it just to focus on how much results you're getting. Because if you keep practicing those things, you'll get a lot better. People will take notice, and you'll start getting hired for a lot bigger things.
And for some reason, I did not like you.
And there she is. How you doing?
Hi, I'm
Happy.
good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited. What are we diving into today, Bonnie? How can I help?
So I actually have a secret to tell you.
Ooh, that's a good start.
A surprise secret that I wanted to tell you as face to face as possible.
Okay.
So I found you in, I think, 2018, when I was first really introduced to entrepreneurial culture after kind of like going from Tony to Gary Vaynerchuk, and then found some of your content. And at some point later in 2018, you were doing like those espressos, like the lives. And I'm gonna be honest, I really didn't understand how like the lives worked.
Okay.
You would take questions. I think it was espresso. I might be wrong about the title, but
I don't know. I've done a lot of stuff. Hard to remember.
so I remember being on one of your lives and I was trying to ask a question, but I guess because I didn't understand how it really worked, like my question wasn't getting answered, I was getting kind of like frustrated. And for some reason, I like did not like you.
Awesome.
So when you came here in January of 2019, I was like, I got to go meet this guy. He's coming here to my hometown. I'm like, I've got to lean in and figure out, because I know that when there's something about somebody else that's like bothering us, it's usually a reflection of something we kind of need to work on and ourselves. So I really try to lean in with kindness. And I'm like, I need to go in person and feel this guy's energy. And the rest is history, because like you were absolutely amazing and humble. And I was like, I don't know what the heck was wrong with me. Probably some kind of jealousy because I couldn't figure out how to ask my question properly or whatever it was, but it all worked out really great. And I'm so grateful that I did get to meet you. And everything since then that I've done has been partly because of you and your inspiration to me. And the way you treated me when I came in person um, to meet you was just, it was an incredible experience. I just have to tell you that. So I wanted to tell you that face to face, not through YouTube Live or Movement Makers. So that's for
Cool.
you.
Well, I mean, thank you. And I remember you stuck around after when we were packing up, and you were, if not the last, one of the last to leave, and just sharing your story. And yeah, it was great. I mean, my favorite thing of that tour was meeting all the faces, because it's, you make content, you see names, but it's actually great to hear their story and get to know them in person. Anyway, so I'm glad. Kudos to you for saying I don't like this guy, so I'm gonna go pay money to be his event and figure out why. I think most people would have the opposite reaction.
Yeah, something told me I needed to go. There was so many reasons I shouldn't have been there that night. I was taking a Humira. I was supposed to do my shot. And you probably remember, I was pretty sick. There was like 5 inches of snow. I don't do snow driving downtown in the dark. It was just like, nope, nope. It's like, no, I gotta do this. Something's pulling me. And I'm just so grateful that I went ahead and listened to my gut and did that, because
You were
here we
also
are.
still, you were on a crazy medical protocol too, with the drugs and everything that you were doing. Like, that was a lot more intense than all the stuff you've healed through since then.
Yeah, I was on a heavy duty biologic med, and I actually postponed it a night. It was an injection, and I was supposed to do it Friday night, and you came on Friday. And I waited in like 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever. When I finally got home, I ended up doing it. But yeah, it was pretty intense period of my life medically. I'm glad it's over. I'm glad I'm not taking that stuff anymore. But so I'm curious then, kind of like, how do you handle those situations? Like if there's something that's rubbing you the wrong way about someone, like how do you lean in? Do you tend to back off? Like how do you usually handle that?
Um, I'm trying to think the last person who kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Um, I think it's so there's always the initial reaction. Um, and I try to limit that as much as possible, but we're all human, and somebody says the wrong thing, um, and you feel defensive or bad about yourself or whatever. And then as quickly as possible, try to get to empathy, right? So I understand. I don't get that a lot. of like, I used to hate you and now I love you, or whatever, or now I can stand you a little more. Maybe people are just too afraid to tell me. Um, I've been I've been trying to share more of the insecurities in the story, and like you go look at the website and see all the history, and it's like I'm not perfect, and I'm still an introvert, still shy, and still try to make that a little more accessible to people. Um, if somebody rubs me the wrong way, I'm just trying to think of the last time like I got into like I don't like this person, like get off my lawn kind of thing. I don't know. I can't remember the last time. I mean, we'll get negative comments. Um, well, here's an example. So there's a guy. So I want to test out NFTs to understand it a little bit more. So I posted one. I posted it on Twitter 2 days ago, and I share it. And some guy follows me, and his immediate response was, "This guy's just trying to make money," or something like that. Uh, so I'm not about the debate, like I don't want to get into, especially on Twitter and social media. So I respond. He retweets at his audience and said, "This guy's just trying to make money," and I wrote back, "Sending you lots of love, Brian," or whatever his name was, Matt something, sending you lots of love with a heart. Uh, and then he blocked me. So it's like, okay, so he follows me for some reason, says this thing, and he looked at what he was doing. He's a little into Bitcoin, and so he knows a little bit about the crypto space. Um, has a negative comment. I try to give him love, and he just blocks me. He doesn't get into a discourse or anything. But I don't know. I have empathy, like, and I feel more. Not bad for him, but just I feel bad that I couldn't explain it better. I feel bad that that's the energy that he's receiving when it's not what I'm trying to put out. But over the long run, I think like I'm in this for life, right? So however long people here have been following me, um, I'm in this for life, and hopefully, if they keep seeing me doing it in different ways, and even this, like already you led with something that I haven't talked about before, and you're bringing out a different side, and maybe that moves one person, a little bit more. Um, so it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It's just when you can lead, it's easy to, oh my God, this guy blocked me. You could go into either defensive mode, like what's wrong with this guy? This guy's a douchebag. I hate this guy. I can't believe this. Or you can go into feeling sorry for yourself. It's like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm never going to launch anything again. Like if this is the reaction, maybe I shouldn't ever create something new because somebody's going to be upset with me. But I think when you can just realize, hey, this guy's got his own life and his own issues and his own problems and his own way of thinking, and he doesn't even know me, and so he caught me on a bad day, and maybe how I showed up with that energy wasn't at the right spot for him, right? So just like you, when you said you didn't like me, you were on my live stream and you couldn't figure out how to ask a question, or maybe you thought you did and I ignored it or whatever. Um, when you're frustrated, you're often not making the best judgment calls, right? And I get it. It's like, hey, if you're there and you don't get it and you're trying to ask a question and you took time out of your life and all the crazy things that you're doing, and you didn't get your question asked, if that was me, I might be frustrated too. And then I may not show up as my best self, right? So just trying to play scenarios, because we get locked in our own head as opposed to trying to understand the other person. Everybody's out there trying to fight their own battles and their own wars, and like think of all the stuff that you've been through. It's crazy, just health wise, and that you're still here and shining and strong and unbreakable. Yeah, so that's how I'll default to thinking as much as possible. It used to hurt me a lot more. Now I think as long as you can get to empathy as quickly as possible, allows you to keep making.
I absolutely love that. I think that I defaulted to, I was frustrated, but then I defaulted to kindness. And I think part of it was for me, as I kept meeting these amazing people, but also feeling, I think I felt less than, like I put you and Gary and everybody up on this pedestal, right? That I was, and where I was in my life at that time, it was kind of like, how, and I think you did quote unquote ignore my question, but it was like I didn't know how to get get you to see it basically, and I was getting frustrated. But it was like, how am I ever going to get to this level was probably this story that I was playing in the back of my head. And then when I started learning about you and how humble you are and like where you came from and the struggles that you had, like you said, all that different stuff that you shared, when I started learning more about you, it was like, wow, I can really relate to this person. They really do understand and care about what I've gone through. And again, meeting you in person, you showed that. I think I was one of the first people that walked in and you walked over and put me on your live. And I'm like, whoa, what is happening here? This is amazing. And so again, I'm super grateful that that I was able to lean in and that you kind of do the same thing by leading with empathy. Like I said, leading with kindness is kind of how I do, which I guess empathy and kindness kind of go hand in hand, right? So, so we've talked on your gaming channel, and I've just launched my coaching business officially, and I'm working on this coaching program. Thank you. But the other thing, it's funny because I told Lily, and I might have told you this already, that I was talking about speaking almost 3 years ago with Lily, but I was like, I don't know who's going to listen to me. Major imposter syndrome. Plus, I still had two little ones at home that weren't in school yet, and I couldn't fathom how I was going to make all that work. So now that I'm a little further along, SJ will be going to school next year. He starts kindergarten. And I'm like, I'm not going to make the same mistake. I'm not going to wait 2.5 more years to kind of launch into a speaking career. But I also want to take baby steps because I'm trying not to rush in and do too much at once. So I know that there's YouTube and there's Instagram. And I'm really trying to learn how to craft my message and like get out there and practice. And I'm wondering, but like I want to kind of do it in real time. And I wonder if there's any suggestions you have for me of like I've done some auditions, I've done lots of like interviews, which I love doing interviews. They're very natural for me, but I'm not a natural speaker. Like I can't just get up and just start talking. So I'm wondering what kind of advice that you might have specifically for what I'm trying to do with that.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody's a natural speaker. I don't know, at least I wasn't for sure. I still get crazy nervous before doing speaking gigs. The two things I would say are one, to practice to the camera every day. And that would be making, whether that's Instagram, whether it's YouTube. What really started helping me was when I started making videos to YouTube every day, even if nobody's watching them, even if nobody cares, just to get the habit of watching my own videos back. And I would, Bonnie, I mean, at 350 videos, I've told this story before, but before I wasn't completely embarrassed. Like it was so hard to watch myself back and to just not want to shut it off and find all the mistakes and all of the, why did I say that? And why am I wearing that? And you know, why wasn't I faster on, you know, all of the little things that we criticize ourselves over. So even though nobody really cared, I would get, if I got like one comment every 4 or 5 videos, I was winning. You know, like nobody was paying attention to my early videos. You can still go back on some of them. Don't go back and watch the first one because everybody goes back and watches the first one. But, you know, that first one had 3 comments in the first year, right? It's my mom and my sister and some random guy. So if you want to be a speaker, it's to practice. That's your easiest practice every day, is to imagine you're talking to an audience and try to picture a group that you'd be potentially talking to, and you're walking on stage, and what would the message be? You know, you mentioned Lily, and when Lily was doing her TED Talk, when we were practicing together, I actually gave her in my condo, we've got this auditorium, and I booked out the auditorium for her to practice. Like, you walk on the stage and you're going to be speaking there. Like, imagine that's your little red circle, and we set up a camera for her to record and to watch yourself back. And she would spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours downstairs practicing the same speech that is, what, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 8 minutes? I forget what you get at TED. But practicing over and over and over and over again, making different videos so that you will be able to get to the point where you can just go. Not because you're naturally good at it, but because you put in all the reps to actually start getting good at it. So if somebody gave you a topic, you know, how do you be unbreakable, Bonnie? That you've got 40 stories to share, you just have to pick which one you're going to lead with. The second thing is I would try to get a live audience as much as possible. So whether that's Instagram that you can come in and start talking, and then you can see, I see finances with Vanessa just said great advice, right? So like as you're talking, you get feedback, you get a live loop where you can start to see what people are thinking, but less of an interview. Not that you're going to come on and interview somebody, but that you're going to go and speak and have, if 4 people show up, but you're getting a little bit of feedback, you see what they resonate with. And that starts to feel like, hey, I'm getting a little bit better at it. And as things open up, thinking about your local libraries, your local, whatever your high school was, the local, wherever you grew up, like all the little local community places. Doesn't mean that you're speaking on giant stages yet, but how do you get there? It's by practicing on all the little stages. SJ is going to kindergarten. Great, go talk to a group of kindergartners, like go off and to speak at the school. A lot of times especially libraries and local community groups are looking for people to come in and share their story and share their wisdom, especially somebody local, because everybody ignores, they're always looking for the big stages and they ignore the little tiny stages. Well, that's how you get better. Like my first speaking gig was at a YMCA and 3 people showed up. And they kept going and kept speaking and kept doing more and eventually get bigger stages. So those 2 things, like you want to be a speaker every day you speak. Every day you make a video, every day you go live. You're not so caring about how many people show up. Like the gaming channel that we do I love it. People's like, how come there's only 8 people here? Like, but I like it. I like starting over. Like I like the intimate. I like that we can go deep with people. It's fun. Now, if I keep doing that for 10 years, it'll be a much bigger audience, but I like the build up. So you're doing it to do it. You're not doing it just to focus on how much results you're getting. Because if you keep practicing those things, you'll get a lot better. People will take notice and you'll start getting hired for a lot bigger things.
So when you started out, did you just like call the YMCA? Like, did you call the schools? Did you like look for things in the paper or something? Or not the paper, I guess the internet, newspaper.
Well, this is how it probably was the paper, Bonnie. That was 20 years ago, 19 years ago. I called the YMCA. So here's what happened. So I sold my business. I was 22, young success story, yada, yada. Got invited to speak. And APEC Forum in Mexico was my real first speaking gig. And the Canadian government sent me there to represent the country as one of the 3 young entrepreneur success stories from the country. And the idea was like young entrepreneurs connecting, talk to each other. I was super nervous. Like, I'm going to go represent my country. What? I've never done a single speaking gig in my life. This is going to be crazy, but say yes, go. And there I met somebody. She liked my speech. And then she invited me to Brunei the next year not even next year, a couple months later to go speak in Brunei. And I loved it. And I thought, well, why am I doing all of these 2 speaking gigs? I should do something for my local city too. I want to do something local and also get more practice, because as great as those opportunities came to me, I can't just wait for things to come to me. I have to start being more proactive. And so I said, I want to do something in Toronto. And the only thing I could think of was YMCA. So I called the local YMCA and said, hey, you have this entrepreneur program. I sold my business. I want to speak to entrepreneurs. How about I come and talk to your group of entrepreneurs? Free. Like, I'm not getting paid to do this. Just I'll share my experience and answer some questions, and hopefully it's a good time for everybody. And they said yes. I mean, it's pretty low. Like, it's all upside for them. You've been through something. You're a local entrepreneur. You've got wisdom to share. These are people like who want to start a dog walking business. It's like I'm not talking to venture capital people who are trying to launch the next Microsoft that I can't give feedback on. It's like they're right at the beginning of their journey. So you can go and help them. And then that led to, I kept doing more YMCA stuff. I mean, the first one had 3 people, but as we started doing more, I got, 5 people and then 8 people and then 12 people. And then, you can keep it up, you keep getting more. Then we got too big for the YMCA. And so we partnered with a bank, Royal Bank. I don't know if you have Royal Bank. I don't think you have Royal Bank in the US. One of the biggest banks in Canada. And all I did was I found a small business representative at the bank and said, hey, I'm doing these events at the YMCA promoting entrepreneurship. Um, we're growing too big for their little space. How about we do something together? And they had boardrooms that were free at night, and we started using their boardrooms. Um, then it got to be too big for the boardrooms, and so I wrote to the bookstore chapters, just like our own Barnes and Nobles here, and said, "Hey, are we doing these events at Royal Bank? Can we do them at your spot?" And they gave me like the front entrance where people walk in, and there I am speaking. And my event was this, and we were doing these every at least a couple of times a month. I don't know how often, like at most once a week, at like least once a month. Um, we had the second biggest event at their place to Sting. Like Sting was their number one person that came in, and then my entrepreneur workshops that I was hosting there. But it started at 3 people at a YMCA, right? And if I just went to the bookstore, they probably would have said no. I mean, it doesn't mean you don't try, but I had nothing. I mean, I had me, I guess, but I had no book to sell. I had I had no audience that people would know me or follow me. But because I started, for them, I came from the Royal Bank and I had all these people following me. Then not following on social media. I didn't even have an Instagram account. I don't know if Instagram even existed back then. Probably not. But I had people on my email list that would show up when I did a talk. And so it was like one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. I would never even had a business model behind it. Like when I was at the bookstore, I never had a book that I could sell. The pitch wasn't, it was usually authors come in to sell their book. Sting had a book, so that's what they were selling. For me, it was, I don't know, I want to help entrepreneurs. And we'll bring people into your store and they'll buy books and coffee and whatever else because they're in your store.
Right.
So yeah, I honestly never thought it would make money. I didn't know how it would ever make money. And I don't know how long that gap was between my first YMCA and like the big Indigo event. But I've always done it just because I really like doing it. And there's always somebody who will say yes. Like if you go and talk to high schools or libraries or something, they'll say yes. And then you start building up enough momentum to then take that to the next place. It's also way more of a thing now than it used to be, right? Like speaking is a thing.
Yeah.
Nobody spoke at a bookstore just to speak. It didn't make sense. So I was just crazy, but I just wanted to help. So that's how I do it. There's a lot of people who would say yes to have you come and speak. And the more you can speak in front of different audiences, whether they're high schoolers or entrepreneur groups or kindergartners or moms or whoever, you start getting that practice.
So I know we're all tight on time. We're almost up with time, but so since COVID's still a thing and I'm high risk and I'm not going to get into the politics of the vaccine, but I can't get a vaccine because of the Guillain-Barré, which paralyzed me a decade ago, which started this whole chronic illness journey. I am not yet ready to go in person. So do you think it's also worthwhile then to reach out and see who's doing like virtual events where
Mm-hmm.
I can just do them from home to
The
keep?
world is so much more Zoom friendly right
Okay.
now.
I think I'm going
Definitely.
to try that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, kids are going back to school now. Um, I'm assuming most people are I mean, we have online options here in Ontario, but every province and state are going to be different. But yeah, people are set up now for online. And even if they're meeting in person, you could Zoom in as long as you can see them. The worst is when you can't see them. Like I've done a whole bunch of speaking gigs, I guess, over COVID where I haven't gone to the actual event. But when I can actually see the room, even if I can't see everybody's individual faces, it's so much better than you're just talking to, they're listening, they can see you, but you can't see anything except the blank screen. So yeah,
Yeah.
they're definitely set up. There's so many groups that would love to have you come and talk. There's so many, I would think about like book clubs or mom groups and like whoever you connect with, there's so many groups who would love to have somebody come in and you're just getting the reps in. You don't have anything to sell. You don't have to worry about selling your anxiety course or anything. Like if it happens, great, but you're there to serve and you're there to try to get better as a speaker. And one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and opportunities start coming.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much. That was super helpful. That's it. I'm already kind of got the gears turning now of thinking about where like who and where I can call to do virtual. I guess I was a little bit worried that that might have put me at a disadvantage, but at the same time, practice is practice. If I can get anybody to say yes to doing a virtual event right now, it's better than nothing. I think I just I was stuck in that. I'm
Yep.
afraid to ask and then tell them I can't come in person kind of thing. But I think it's probably more understandable now than it ever was in the past before
And you share that you're immunocompromised and you don't have the vaccine and you can't get it. And if they say, well, that's stupid, Bonnie, you say, oh, thank you, and you move on to the next person. Right? I mean, empathy, kindness. How do we start this whole thing, right? Like if they don't
Right.
understand it, awesome. Like sending you love, and there's tons of other people. I mean, it also opens up your world. You don't have to stay local to where you are. There's
It's
every
true.
library, high school, Lions Club, Entrepreneur Association, all the local things. Like think of universities starting up, schools starting up. How many schools, universities have entrepreneur clubs as a part of their school? Like I was part of an entrepreneur club in both high school and university. To have an actual entrepreneur come in and talk to us from anywhere would be
Yeah.
fantastic, right? I mean, how many schools and universities are there just in your state, let alone America, who could love your message? And if they don't like you because you don't have the vaccine, or they don't like you because they don't like women named Bonnie, great, like next. Much love, and on to the next, because there's tons of opportunities out there for you.
Yeah, I think actually University of Pittsburgh has something, and I went to school there for a few years. My dad actually worked there for I think like 27 years, so I'm sure I could find somebody. That's where I met David. Here he came here to Pittsburgh too for some entrepreneurial something, I don't know, and I kind of snuck in and was able to catch the Q&A part of that.
It's
So
not so hard. Like you've already done enough to stand out. Like you've done the Dave Meltzer thing. You won that competition. You could easily make a video or a presentation on how to win competitions and entrepreneur advice. And then the more you do, you get Pittsburgh done. Then you use that to go get others. Like, hey, I did University of Pittsburgh. So what's up, Maryland? How about you have me come in? Right? You're not asking for payment yet, right? So
yeah,
it's an easy yes to have somebody who's had some kind of experience come in and share their wisdom. And for you, it's the practice to keep getting better.
that's a really good idea. I hadn't thought about using that in that way. That was definitely my into getting interviews. I've done I don't know, like 30 interviews or something since the show aired, or since my episode aired. And it was like my lead in to then tell everybody about my story and where I started from and how I got to where I am. And that's how ended up in coaching, was because people were asking, well, coaching officially, people were asking, well, wait a minute, if you were paralyzed and you were this and you had this, how the heck did you get to where you are? And I started, like you said, like you teach, I started noticing people, the questions people were asking the most, and realizing that I really had something somewhat unique that I could share with and help people with. So I want to thank you too for teaching me that, because that's where I really extracted that from, was noticing those patterns of what people were latching onto. And then that's kind of what I end up talking about the most usually when we do these interviews. So
All of those, are any clubs, any meetups are great. Whether they meet in person or not, any Facebook group around anxiety, you can come in and speak. Around entrepreneurship, you can come in and speak. Like there's so much opportunity. There's so many groups out there. You don't need 1,000 people. You need 8 in a room that you can then just go and practice. And there's tons of 8-person groups who will give you a stage. Like you could be speaking 30 times next week to 8 people groups to get really good at your craft.
that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Let's go,
Thank you
Bonnie.
so much.
Let's go, Bonnie.
I'm so excited, and I'm gonna steal this once you post it, and I'm gonna save it and share it, and um, put this in as part of my mementos, as part of my journey. So
Cool.
I'm super excited. Thank you so much for
Well,
your
thank you for
time.
coming on. Thank you for sharing the story at the beginning. Appreciate you. Great to have you in Movement Makers as well. And everybody, check out Posh. Is it just Posh Notions? Posh underscore? What's your handle?
It's just Posh Notions on Instagram. Yeah, I haven't switched it over yet. I changed my bio, or updated my bio for to reflect the coaching that I'm doing. But everybody knows me as Posh. And it's a testament, I guess, to the brand that I built. That's pretty cool. Like I still have people that don't know my first name, and I don't mind. But it's interesting. Like I was like, I don't want to make a full switch yet because I don't want people to be like, wait, who is this Bonnie person? I don't know who
You know what?
this is.
If Sean Combs can do it, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, you can do it too. Much love, everybody. Go check out Posh Notions. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
If you want to see another awesome one-on-one I did with an entrepreneur just like you, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I'm stuck, man. I don't know what it is.
You've got the message. You've got a story. You've got wisdom that you know will impact others. It's just reducing the burden
Yeah.
and knowing that the story, is good.